Hey, everybody, you're listening to and watching the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
Oh, I get to do it?
Yes!
All right, I'm John on Demand, everybody. Hi.
And we are your hairy, heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy, heavy homo to listen in, or in this case, stream in. We do not have Brother Brian with us because he's on a work engagement, but we do have our very fine friend, John Runyan, from a Comic Book Look podcast. He actually had a week off from that podcast, but we put him to work tonight. So thank you for sitting in the fourth slot here, there, John.
Thank you for
Really
having
appreciate
me.
it.
Wow.
And of
To be
course,
fair,
we're
you don't even actually have to be hairy to be on the show.
no,
Hairy
you don't.
spirit.
Harry spirit. My spirit is coughing up fur balls.
Yeah.
Oh, it's really awesome to have you on the show again, John. And as always, it is wonderful to have Caleb on too. We love it when you're not in class and you're not having to read 50,000 pages a week of law, basically.
I really enjoy when I don't have to do that too. It's kind of my favorite part about law school is when I'm not actually in law school.
I told you.
You did. You warned me. Someday I'll listen.
No, but you have very different goals and trajectories than I had, so it will pay off for you. Don't listen to an old curmudgeon like me.
I'm just trying to be you when I grow up.
Jaded and sad. Well, don't. So anyway, we got a lot of comic books to talk about. DCBS boxes have come in.
Yep.
People have made their trips to their LCSs. So we were doing the numbering, and it's a lot of books. So we're just going to jump right into that right now, and we'll start as we always do with Steve. Steve, what's a book that you're reading that you're digging?
Well, I mean, if we're going to be jumping right into the spinner rack, the first one I'm going to be talking about is and preface this, of course.
This picture of you literally jumping into a spinner rack.
Smash, smash, smash. Everybody's.
I love comics. Yeah.
And everybody's mad because I ruined all the comics and broke the spinner rack. But in any case, probably a studio that could fill up a spinner rack at this point. They're relatively new. They've only been around for, at this point, maybe a full year. Their big launch and rollout was kind of delayed and, basically delayed and pushed out and chopped up because of the pandemic last year. But I'm talking about AWA.
It also didn't help that their marquee book was about a pandemic.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a little weird. Yeah.
The background for that was the Resistance. The whole background of it is there's this deadly plague that consumes the planet, and there's no vaccine, there's no treatment against it, and it kills hundreds of millions of people. Oh,
yeah, you want your finger
great,
on the
really
pulse beat, but maybe not that close.
And also one of their other first books was a zombie plague too, so it's just kind of hand in hand. But now they've had a full year. They've actually been going. They've put out a ton of titles. Everything's essentially in, mini-series format. So you have 4, 5, 6 issue arcs. And the latest one, and this one actually has an odd number, 8 issues total, is Marjorie Finnegan, Temporal Criminal, by our good friend, everybody's favorite, Garth Ennis. Garth is known for being very family friendly. It's the language is very flowery. So I knew exactly what to expect coming into Marjorie Finnegan, Temporal Criminal, and he did not disappoint. When I was reading this, just a few pages in, of course, I had to take a screen capture of one of the exchanges in this, where an ancient Egyptian priest calls Marjorie a slave slut of the emperor, just hey, quit talking out of turn, you slave slut of the emperor. And I'm like, that's a great term of endearment. I think everyone should call each other that. But it is great. So Marjorie Finnegan, of course, is the titular hero. She's very much an anti Titular. Ha ha ha.
No, I was just laughing because there was a book we had dealt with last year, which was Daphne Byrne. So I'm just
Nibarn.
in my head, it's Daphne Finnegan, Marjorie Finnegan.
Marjorie, Daphne, they're all pretty much the same. This one is basically, she's very much an anti-hero. She jumps around through time to steal stuff and just basically cause a mess. And the interesting little contrivance here that Garth's written in is that there's a special device that can actually prevent major paradoxes from happening. So basically, if she kills somebody by accident or beats them up, the timeline corrects itself, and so it's not her shooting them in the head with a shotgun. It's he's actually accidentally been run over by a chariot. So it just kind of like shifts to a more realistic situation for that person that she's just murdered, and it's pretty goofy, but of course it allows her to have all sorts of crazy adventures, which we do see one of them as we first start. And of course she has a headquarters somewhere tethered in the middle of the time stream, so it's outside of everybody's jurisdiction. We get to see a little bit of her life. She's a kook. She's crazy. She eats cold pizza. She's, basically the perfect anti-hero for a Garth Ennis book. This is also contrasted to another character who's more of a time cop, basically a one-eyed gunslinger who breaks up a Nazi who's helping a bunch of Englishmen from, being attacked by Vikings in the early 900s with a large anti-tank gun. So, of course, creating a lot of problems. She takes him out, and it's a great contrast for Marjorie Finnegan, crazy person, and then this other mysterious person who's more of a time cop. So it's really cool. It's funny. I noticed that I'm freezing on here, so sorry about that.
You're fine with us.
Okay, it was freezing on my end, but it's a great first introduction. Garth Ennis always, right out of the gate, lets you know what to expect in this book, and it's going to be crazy. The language is going to be, more F-bombs than you can, shake a stick at, of course, which are wonderful. Everybody loves those. And the art in this case is by Goran Sujuka, and I'm not sure what else he's done, but it is great. It's very classic. I would say like it's a very classic like 90s, maybe early 2000s style, which just fits in perfectly because Garth Ennis is known and had some really great books in the 90s and the early 2000s. So this just kind of like has that same feel of something that I would expect from Vertigo, but a little bit more irreverent maybe, which is funny talking about the guy who created Preacher. And it's also notable because he is reunited with Axel Alonso, who is the editor-in-chief and publisher of AWA. He was also the editor on his book Preacher the last time they worked together 20 years ago. So Axel has a nice little write-up in the back of this about how interesting it was, that every day every month he would wait until the day after New Comic Book Day, expecting to be fired for allowing a book like Preacher on the shelves, and that call never came. He eventually just moved on his own to Marvel, but it was just really funny that here he is kind of reunited again, and he basically says, because hey, I'm the publisher here now, it's my fault that this stuff gets on the shelf. And it's fun, it's a blast, it's goofy, definitely not for kids, but I think if you really enjoy Garth Ennis, it's not super gory, so if you're expecting more of his gorier stuff, you're not going to find it here, or at least not so much. It's much more cartoony, but it's a lot of fun, so I recommend picking up Marjorie Finnegan, Temporal Current.
So you were saying you didn't know what Goran Suzuka had done before. This is actually his second book with Garth Ennis. They did a book at Aftershock together called A Walk Through Hell, which was incredibly good. It literally goes through some Nine Circle stuff, and is psychological horror at its best. And it's not Garth Ennis being 90s Garth Ennis. It's not the kind of edgelordy type provocateur stuff. It's just him writing a straight up psychological horror, and it's phenomenal. And like Goran Suzuka's art is really incredibly. Incredible. It's not like picturesque or the most detailed stuff, but his ability to craft a story, like the craft of his sequentials, is just next level. I love his stuff.
It's very clean. I love like what he's doing here. It's so expressive. This is actually another. I don't know if I can zoom in pretty close on this. Here's a gentleman who's just been literally riddled with holes, bullet holes, and he just kind of falls apart. But it's just the detail and the expressions on all these people. It's just it's great. I really enjoyed his art. And Miroslav Murva was the colorist on this one. And again, the colors are very they pop. It's perfect for this type of story. So I think this is all in all, it's a great package, and I'm really happy I picked it up, and I'll be continuing all 8 issues. So
okay, I do have a question about Marjorie Finnegan. Marjorie. I know that the early Resistance titles were part of a shared universe. Is this part of that as well?
I don't believe so.
No. Okay.
And in fact, I think that's actually one of the interesting things about AWA. I know the big premise around AWA was like big shared universe, but I have a feeling that anything that's outside of their superhero type books are very much, disconnected, like their own thing. I'm sure there's some other shared stories and some shared, type of books that might be put out by the same creators. But I think here, this is very separate from the Resistance. So,
okay.
Oh, who knows? I mean, maybe later in the issues they'll connect it back somehow. But I think it's pretty indie.
All right, cool. All right, John, since you're in Brian's seat, you get Brian's time slot. So tell us about a book that you're reading that you're digging.
Yeah, absolutely. So on our show, we often rave about Vault Comics and their offerings with their Nightfall series, which have a horror emphasis. And so with this, I wanted to lift up I Walk with Monsters because issue 6 came out this week. And I have thoroughly enjoyed this series from start to finish. Being someone that's a proud Marvel zombie, as you guys can see behind me, that's my main bread and butter. But this past year and a half or so, I've been really trying to branch out. And Vault has really fulfilled me as a reader with several of their offerings. I Walk with Monsters included. So Paul Cornell on the 1s and 2s for writing weaves us a story just depicting a young girl named JC. Her brother gets taken by the Impossible Man, or the Important Man, excuse me. And she encounters a man/creature named David. David happens to be, don't tell Ken this, happens to be kind of a little cutie patootie. And so we see David in different states of dress upon reverting back to his human form. And so, of course, while I'm sitting there drinking my drink and looking at the book, I'm like, okay, I'm okay with that. But more importantly, I really like the themes present in this book. So it really deals with the trauma of losing a sibling and how to cope with that. Jace's technique of coping with that involves wanting to basically go after and kill the important man. And David recognizes you have a lot of growing up to do, so maybe that's not the best thing. So there's a lot of morality throughout the 6 issues here. It ends up being a suitable ending. I'm not going to spoil it just because it came out this week. But with as much punch as this short run offers, artwork is super chill and mellow, but it's just something different. It's fresh. If you're experiencing any sort of superhero burnout, give Vault Comics a try and just check out I Walk with Monsters for sure. There will probably be a trade coming out shortly, but I love singles just because I love the different covers and everything, and I just couldn't wait. So definitely a treat though, and very pleasantly surprised by it. So
all right, cool.
I've been reading along with this with I Walk with Monsters, and I didn't know what to expect going into it, and really was surprised at how heavy a couple of the main themes are. And obviously, her brother's abduction originally, or well, was it abduction or
yeah
sale? I don't know. It's very. I love how the perspective is definitely. What's the word? it's zeroed in very much from her experience and her memories.
Yeah.
So you don't always get the whole story or the whole picture. You just get her impressions and her feelings of this. And obviously it's horrible and traumatic. And,
Yep.
And I really love that the moral compass in this is a, werewolf monster creature, who seems to have a much better grip on reality and what's right and what's wrong than this poor. And she's not really a little girl. She's she's a young woman. She's older, but it's just it was such a great story. I can't wait to read the ending.
Yep.
That.
Highly recommend it. But yes, David is definitely my woof of the book. So
woof of the book. Yeah.
The different covers for this book are fantastic. No, and I'm going to co-sign with you. I haven't read this book, but Vault's line of horror books have been phenomenal. The Autumnal, my favorite so far. The plot, and you want to talk about heavy themes, like that's what's great about a book like this that has the themes that you're talking about. The plot was all about intergenerational family trauma, essentially, but told through a Swamp Thing-esque type. Whatever's growing out of the basement, they're just Vault really has in the past 2 years just been on the rise for a smaller publisher, and you got to respect them for what they're doing.
Yeah. In Autumnal too, it's funny, Caleb. I really want to give the tattoo removal guy a gigantic hug. He just looks huggable. With that beard is not playing. So I love that character so much. He really just pops for me, and it's cool. So it's a great book, though. I agree.
All right, let's move over to Caleb. Caleb, tell us about a book you're reading that you're digging.
So I'm going to go a little bit darker and a little bit heavier than what we've been talking about. And it's from a book out of Image Comics. And I don't know if any of you are reading this, but the book is called Carmen. It's written and drawn by Guillaume March. And it looks, just if you've never seen Guillaume March's artwork before, it very much has a bande dessinée feel to it. I've seen him do... He's done a lot of stuff. He's done superhero stuff. He's done stuff, I think, for DC. I think he did a few Batman issues, which had a different flair. But issue 3 of this book came out last week, and it's a book that I like it because I disagree with it on a lot of levels, if that makes sense. It's a book that makes you think. It's a book that makes you question different themes. Essentially, the book is about the I want to say life, but that would be wrong. It's about the afterlife of this woman named Catalina. And Catalina has, unfortunately, and this is, trigger warning to anybody, this book is severely about suicide. So if anybody has an issue with that, completely understand, but the book's totally about suicide, and she's taken her own life, which is a heavy enough theme. But after she does that, she kind of wakes up and she realizes she's not alone in the room. And there's this woman who introduces herself as Carmen, and her entire body is blacked out. It's blacked out, but it's in the form of a skeleton. I'm going to try to show a panel, which it's really hard to do because throughout the rest of this series, Catalina is nude, and so there's just naked lady all through the book. Very, very classily done. This is not smut. But so you can kind of see it right here. She's just kind of this blacked out skeleton except for her face, and she's got pink hair. And she's kind of this, I don't want to say analog or stand-in for death, but she's basically death. You can call her an archangel, you can call her a reaper, whatever. But her job is to kind of deal with whatever's left over, this residual energy from people. And she's a reaper for all intents and purposes. She goes around and she finds people who have passed away from any kind of theme. Whatever's happened, old age, what have you, and she is supposed to help them transition. And what you find out in the book is by transition, it really is reincarnation. But Carmen takes her job a little bit differently than what other people, because there are other reapers, so to speak, than what they take theirs. And she goes and as she's dealing with certain clients, people like Carmen, she wants to teach them some type of moralistic lesson. She wants to help them figure out something that took them down a wrong path or a decision they didn't make. And that's where I start to disagree with the themes of the book, because it gets into a very heavy moment where Carmen is essentially she's talking to Catalina about, oh, you think this is selfish what I do, you didn't call your parents, they're about to get this terrible phone call, you've done this incredible act that you acted rashly to do, and it's going to ruin so many lives, which I think that's a bad look, as not from the writer's perspective, just in general. People who think that people commit suicide, who take their own life, are acting out of selfishness or something like that. I think I don't believe that to be true. I think there's a lot that goes into that. It's a very complex issue that leads people down to dark places where they commit these acts. But the book makes you reckon with that. And that's what I think good art should do. It doesn't. I don't know if these are Guillaume March's opinions or he wants people to think about that. But it is. It's very heavy. In the third issue, there's this scene where she's been floating / swimming. She realizes that she's no longer tethered by gravity throughout the city. But she kind of crosses Carmen. Catalina does kind of crosses Carmen in the wrong way, and Carmen kind of snaps her back to the reality of her situation. She notices there's this guy there, looking at an engagement ring and staring at this woman across the street. Obviously, he's about to propose. Unfortunately, he doesn't ever make it across the street. And she's having this wake up call moment that, life is not fair. And she really wants to take this notion of living for the moment, of reaching out, being part of a family, being part of a community through whatever transition this is. This issue also gives you a better glimpse of another Reaper who shows up to kind of do their job. And she starts to realize just how different Carmen is. It's a heavy book. Well, I say that it ranges from being heavy to be incredibly lighthearted at times, as they just tell these jokes. And there's literally a naked ghost swimming through the city skyline of I want to say Spain. I'm not sure where in Spain it is, but I think Guillaume March is Spanish. But it's superbly done. The storytelling is excellent. For a book that's full of nudity, like I said, this is not smut. It's not sexualized at all. He is able to, it's hilarious. Sometimes you read comic books and we see artists objectify women with tons of clothes on. Well, here you have a book where the woman is literally nude throughout the entire book, and there's not a single panel that's sexualized. It's phenomenal work. And the craftsmanship that he puts into this is unparalleled to a lot of what I see in comics today. Really enjoying it, really enjoying the thought process that goes into closing that last panel. It's like, hey, what do I think of this? How do I think of this this phenomenon and people who are taken to the brink of this edge, and how do I reckon that with my life in the way that maybe I treat people in my own life? So really is art with a capital A, in my opinion. So I would love to own a page from this. I would commit. I know I say that like with every book I talk about on the show.
Yeah,
but it is stunning, just stunning work. I mean, even his use of color theory in the book is insane. So that's
right.
I mean, you
Cool.
mentioning a bande dessinée, sort of like a very European style. I love that. I love that style. Anything that's 2000 AD to Mobius to a lot of the French bande dessinée style. It's just really, really cool. So I might pick that up and trade. Because I also read a lot of comics that have like naked women, but most of them tend to be Maria Lovett style, so there's a lot of smut kind of mixed in, but also lovingly depicting a female form or a male form, in a way that is artful and not necessarily objective, objectifying them. So yeah,
I'm gonna try to share my screen, just because sometimes people don't. I don't think people know necessarily what a bande dessinée is or what we mean when we say that. So if you can see my screen,
let me add this. Hold on. There we go.
Yeah, so if you can see my screen now, like this is the kind of work that it's a very thin line. It's not Mobius, but it is evocative, I think, of Mobius. It's incredibly well crafted. And this is a good indication of the color work that I was talking about, and it's just these pages are redonkulous, for lack of a better word.
If not Mobius, it certainly is evocative of a lot of other artists that operate somewhere within the humanoids.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like it's
Publishing
like
company.
the Kevin Bacon game of Mobius. So it's not Mobius, but it's like it learned from somebody who learned from Mobius, if that makes sense. So
Does to
that's
me.
my book.
All right.
Cool.
Okay, we'll stick with dark. Okay. This is a book that has encountered a number of delays because of COVID. You know, there are many, but it also had the disadvantage of coming out basically simultaneously as two other very similar suited books in DC's Black Label publishing arm, which were Harleen and Joker Killer Smile from Jeff Lemire. Harleen was from Stefan Sepjak. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. This one kind of got lost in the shuffle, which is a damn shame because, for my purposes, it far exceeds those books. And this is Joker Harley, Criminal Sanity, which is written by Cami Garcia. Cami, in terms of comic book work, is probably best known for the Raven and then later the Beast Boy graphic novels that came out of the DC Inc. or DC Zoom. I forget which one. Now it's all DC anyway. Um, and this is, yet another telling of the Joker Harley origin. But the Harley that we see here is not that, oh, Mr. J. I mean, it's not that type of take on Harley. It's much more grounded in reality. The Joker that's in here is also far less a criminal and far more the urban terrorist that we saw in the Dark Knight film. So that was refreshing just from the get-go to cover terrain that we're used to, but with tweaks to the characters that I thought made it really look interesting. The art is by Jason Bador with inks by Miko Siyanin, and it's primarily a black and white book. When they do use color, it's for important purposes, as you can see there. And it's the 8th issue, which is the final issue, and the Joker's machinations in Gotham and spreading his particular breed of terrorism through the city culminates at a concert called the Event Horizon. And as far as I'm concerned, we do have a cameo from Dinah Lance as Black Canary. I'm like, as far as I'm concerned, that's who that is. And there, and the best thing about this is the end takes a turn that you don't expect. All of the pieces are in place for that transition from Harley, from Dr. Harleen Quinzel into Harley Quinn that we know. All those pieces are in place, but she goes a different route. And it's, again, for a book that's more grounded in reality, if these characters actually did exist, it was one that I bought more easily than some of the other interpretations. When I do get a stack of new comics, Harley's kind of, a little bit lower on the scale than some other franchises. But if you had entrusted Cami Garcia to write her, I would be there every time because she has a grasp on the character, but she knows where you can remix it and provide for something really interesting. So I don't know if anybody's been reading this. It's going to be collected in trade, and from what I understand, there's going to be 2 different formats. There's going to be one that's like a conventional comic size, and then one which is in the bigger Black Label. I guess you can call it Batman Damned size, and 8th and final issue. And I'm going to miss it, and I do hope we have this particular writer on this particular character again. So that's the book
cool.
I'm talking about. Yep. And it got totally overlooked with, between the delays and, Harleen #1 selling out instantly. And then the Lemire book, it was, I don't know why they did a scheduling thing where they had 3 very similar books out at the same time. It seemed that you would want to kind of spread the joy and give them each, a bigger chance of hitting the mark, of enjoying some success in the market. But trades are forever, ideally, and and let's hope that it does get a bit more prominence in that format, because it's a shame that this book got lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, no, I
Look,
it's a really cool. It looks like a really cool book, and again, because I don't pick up a lot of Joker or Harley or Batman. I mean, it's not a surprise that it flew under my radar, but I mean, the pages that you just flipped to, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, no, absolutely gorgeous. And even when bad things happen, like here, there's a variation of Smilex. I mean, look how beautiful that's, just between the fog and the mutation. It's really beautiful work. And I don't know what the hell Jason Bedauer has done prior to this. But it's really good. I hope you guys do check that out in trade, because I think it's well worth it. And I do think it's, knowing the tastes of the two of you, at least, John, I can't comment. My apologies. I do think it's enough in your wheelhouse that you would enjoy it.
You're talking about DC getting overlooked in the weird DC schedule. DC's gone through a lot in the past year and a half. Like we have to forgive.
She's had a bad year. Give her some space.
But, I think everybody's had a bad year in terms of some of these situations. Marvel, which it just had some weirdness to their publishing schedule, and then kind of grasped onto it pretty well. Look at the delays with Venom 200. The printer ran out of paper.
Well, like I wasn't even going to say that DC was just having a bad year, but I mean, you think about what all they've done and like what all's happened. Dropping Diamond, starting this like revolution from that, dealing with what we now know is the AT&T merger, and then now being sold again. Like there's so much going on with DC as a publisher that it's like it's not surprising that things got delayed. And honestly, considering what all they've had going on, it's kind of impressive how well they've handled it. Just to be honest, because it could have been a lot worse.
I mean, they still put out some really good books. I mean, there's some stinkers, but what publisher doesn't have a couple stinkers here and there, especially ones that have like a large plethora of titles that they put out every month. But some of these premium books,
and even something which I thought was a clunker like Future State. They saw that they had this material that had been prepared. They were able to reconfigure it so that that these artists weren't being artists and writers weren't being let down by having the work not published because of the change in editorial. And though it's something that's not resonating with me, it is resonating with some people, because there are ongoings that are based on that Future State. And I do think when you do have a company that is and I don't think this is an unkind term, but it is in turmoil, that they are able to keep the head above water and still sail, I think is always impressive.
No, I can't. I think you said it perfectly. Hey, before we move on to the second round of books, I want to know what your T-shirt looks like.
Oh, okay. It says roast beef, and there's a cow that's sitting on the beach, and naturally this looks 80s and looks kind of Funko, and that's because it is 80s and Funko. This is a Funko variation of a T-shirt that Dustin in Stranger Things wore. It's a little more conventional cow that's sitting on the beach in the shirt that is in this series, but that's where it's from, and it did come with a set with a Dustin Funko, so that's
awesome.
And actually, Caleb, with your shirt, which I see Alan Turing fought Nazis with his gay brain, I have a variation of that actually has Turing's picture. All the words I couldn't think of, picture, Jesus. And mine says Alan Turing fought Nazis with science. It's kind of
nice. I got this shirt in Chicago a couple of years ago, and it's from a company. I don't know if you can see if I can do this without knocking my desk over. If you can see the back of it,
No, yeah,
company's
it's
called
Geeks
Geeks
Out.
Out.
Yeah,
Out.
Geeks
Yeah,
Out did
yeah.
my shirt too. Yeah. Yep.
Nice.
Mhm.
Love Geeks Out.
And they are
hey,
putting on FlameCon in August.
They
It is a
are.
go. So there you go.
Yes.
All right. So
Um,
Steve, since we're doing the fashion show, before we get to your thing, what's your shirt?
Well, really quick though, Stony Williams just popped in real quick
Hey.
to say hello. Got a full house here tonight, so he can't stay, but I want to pop in and say, hey, y'all, love your faces. We love you too, Stony. Thank you so much for stopping by to see our T-shirts.
Yeah, and he mentioned his trade is out. I have all the floppies now. Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, I got all my floppies, and yeah, I got to pick up the trade too because I loved it. It was so much fun. I recommended it. Anybody who I've talked to at my LCS, I've recommended it too. So hopefully a couple more people will be picking that up because it's awesome.
So what is your disturbing shirt there?
My shirt is a narwhal, but he's very pissed and kind of like, nah. I don't want to deal with it. So
he's a narwhal.
He's a narwhal. Yeah.
Okay.
Nah. Anyway.
And John, how about you?
So mine is actually delightful and local. I am rocking my rainbow buffalo for South Dakota.
Nice.
Nice.
So he's a little cute icon. We have them all on people's cars, like bumper stickers and stuff here in town, and shirts everywhere. So that's our little mascot.
Awesome.
So.
Awesome.
Okay, so Steve, I'll throw it over back to you. What is a book you're reading that you're digging?
So this is something that I discovered. It was randomly in another issue of a comic. It was advertised in an issue of a Black Mask comic that I was reading. And I was like, that looks intriguing. I might as well pick it up. And so I did. Destiny New York is the name of the book. And so far, there's 2 issues out under Black Mask, and I think a third one is out next week, maybe. But it is written by Pat Shand and drawn by Manuel Pretano. It is all black and white, so this is another black and white book that we're talking about today, which is something that we used to see all the time in the 80s and 90s, but not too often now, because I think everybody wants to really put out like bright colored or like be really creative with color. The covers on this are beautiful, for one, but here's the other thing, and this is kind of a conflicting, and I'll tell you what my conflict is after I describe what this book's about, before I get too far. So Destiny New York is a really interesting premise of a world where magic exists. It is a part of everyday life. It's a very similar world to ours. So there's, people have cell phones and cars and things like that. They're not all flying around on broomsticks. But it is a world where people, especially a lot of kids and young people, are all chosen ones. They all have prophesied destinies that they have to accomplish. Defeating a great evil, and it looks like I'm kind of paused again. Okay, there we go. Like where they have to defeat the world's greatest evil, or they have to save an entire station. Well, they go about they do that, but what happens afterwards is what's kind of at interest here. So there's a university, a school that teaches kids from K to 12 and then college and grad courses how to, one, control their powers or whatever they need to do in order to fulfill their destinies. But then also it takes those same kids after they've already fulfilled their destinies and then tells them how to, make it in life. Because a lot of these kids, especially when you read a lot of YA fiction, your future is so important. You're the chosen one. You need to do whatever. You're the Harry Potter. You're the, it doesn't matter. Once you fulfill that destiny, what comes next? And this is what this is about. And it's a funny premise, actually. In fact, there's a Harry Potter-like character who's putting off destroying his Voldemort because he's like, I got all the time in the world to do that. It's not a big deal. Whatever. I'll eventually kill him. I just don't feel like doing it now. And like, there's all these characters that are kind of in different stages of fulfilling their destinies. But the main character here is Logan McBride, and she had the unfortunate distinction of fulfilling her destiny as a chosen one at the age of 13, and now she's in her 20s, and her life is kind of going nowhere. She's still at the school. She doesn't really have much going for her. She works as a barista, but doesn't really have a lot of ambition beyond that. She's had a really terrible breakup with her ex-girlfriend and ex-fiance, who is now, she finds out, marrying a man, and she doesn't like that. And just things are kind of blah for her. Her life's going nowhere. She's kind of a joke at the school as well. And she ends up running into a badass, who's also here on the cover, named Lilith, who has come back to New York for unknown reasons. And it turns out that her sister is head of a magical criminal cartel as well. So there's a lot of great characters are introduced in these first 2 issues, and a lot of really cool things that are going to happen that are just percolating. My dilemma here. This is a monthly book being put out by Black Mask. Pat Shand has already kickstarted this. He actually started writing this several years ago, 5 years ago, and there are about 40 issues worth of Destiny New York comics already out there available in trade. But this is the first time that it's being published on a single issue format. So you can still get the completed trades. They are available out there. I think it's volumes 1, 2, and 3 of the main book, and then there's 2 extra titles that are trade collections of different stories related to characters in this world. And I'm so tempted to just do that. But Pat and Black Mask especially. Black Mask is a smaller publisher. They do put out some really great stuff. They are taking this property and basically giving it a go as a single issue, as an ongoing series. And I really do want to support both publisher as well as the author and artist who have done an amazing job. They put it out. They've already kickstarted their stuff. They've already gotten 5 volumes published of this. But I really want to watch. I want to read it on a monthly basis. I could go out right now and get all of them and just look through it and then I'm done. Or I could just read for 2+ years on a monthly basis, buying the singles. And so that's my dilemma. I could do both. I can do both.
I think what Bill would tell you to do, and this is going to be channeling Bill, is quit your bitching, buy a bigger bunker, and do both.
No. When it comes to something like that, I would say keep reading it in the form you feel the most comfortable with.
Right.
If you had read those first 2, did you read the first 2 issues in tandem, or was there a separation between 1 and 2 when you read them?
Well, I read them in tandem just because I missed when the first issue had been released, and so I got it when the second issue came out. So I just bought both of them together. So
at the same time. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I would say keep going with the single issues, but if you find that you end up with a backlog, then just go the collected route.
Go with the trades, get the trades.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I
That's a
feel
lot
too.
of money. Comics are expensive.
Comics are expensive, and that's the thing. I mean, they're $4 a piece. Not the problem. The good thing with this is that the page count is anywhere from the standard 22 whatever to 40 pages, and that's kind of the way that Black Mask is allowing this to be done.
Oh,
so
okay.
he's providing the separation there for the issues. So he's breaking them out the way that he wants to do it, and he talks about this. Read the back matter for sure, because he does do a letter per issue to kind of explain what's going on. But I haven't been this intrigued in a concept since Morning Glories. If anybody remembers that book that was out and was really awesome and had so much buzz and then disappeared. Well, this isn't going to have that problem because everything's already been written and published. So in a different format. So if I'm reading this on a monthly basis, I know I'm not going to be disappointed. Yeah, exactly. Gorgeous book. Wonderful story.
I have it with a different. Was it also published with a white cover?
Yes.
Okay. Then I do have it.
Oh yeah.
This is what would be an omnibus hardcover.
Okay. So I have the first volume of that.
Yeah, I bought it all in individual trades because I didn't start picking up the singles until issue 25, but then it continued all the way to I think 50 something, and then just stopped.
Yeah. It was Nick Spencer, so I lost interest early.
Yeah. Well, apparently he did too. He lost interest in his own stuff. But that's the thing with this. I'm not worried about that. Like, I'm so intrigued with this. I have the same kind of desire to keep going, and just like amazed at how much depth he's put into these characters and the environment and everything already. I know it's not going to peter out in like 20 issues because it's already there. It's just being put out in a monthly standard.
Okay, let's go over to John. John, tell us about something you're reading that you're digging.
All right. Well, Bill, I'm one for controversy, and I'm really sorry to hear about DC's troubles as of late, but I know the reason why. And the reason why is Marvel completely stole the cast of the Justice League for their major event going on right now with Heroes Reborn. I have always struggled with the Squadron Supreme as a team because they are a blatant ripoff of the Justice League. And it's the funniest thing to me ever. And so I'm just like, Bill, I was going to come up with this creative speech about how you're just going to go to Marvel now because the characters went that way, but you're not going to buy it anyway.
No, that's not going to happen.
We're going to get to the book. When we were originally talking, I was like, yeah, I'll do issue 3, but I hadn't read issues 1 or 2 yet either. So I went ahead and powered them all last night. The event as a whole, Jason Aaron on the 1s and 2s for writing, solid story. I like the story. Caleb, you mentioned you were checking this title out too, I think. The art for me is kind of, I don't know, like it's a little cartoony in places, which is dumb to say for a superhero book, but it's like when you have Thanos with that kind of an expression, it's to me it's a little more cash. I'm like, okay, this is totally not something that I'm going to take seriously, as a fan, personally. The story is amazing, though. I love the concept. I love Blade, of all characters, like kind of leading the charge a little bit. And also, Hyperion isn't boring for once. I think this is the first time I've read Hyperion where I'm not like, yawn, bored. He's actually, it's interesting to kind of follow along with what he does. I'm not one for alternate reality anything typically. I don't like a lot of that. I want to stay in the main U because I'm a big believer that characters are rich in their backgrounds and that we can tell a good story without throwing this through a portal. That said, this has actually been pretty delightful. There's a huge moment for me. I can't spoil it though. Well, actually, can I spoil issue 2? That came out like a couple weeks ago. Issue 2, Hyperion approaches Galactus at warp speed and flies straight through his head. That's cool. And I've never seen Galactus get like one shot destroyed before, right? So that just blows my mind. I'm not going to spoil issue 3 because there's a lot of fun moments in there as well. But I gotta say, the other thing that we were kind of poking fun about the series was how many Caleb's got it right there. So for those of you watching, that moment right there, that is bananas to me. Absolutely bananas. So we were giving this series a hard time about all of these add-ons, right? All of the supplemental books that you can get in addition to the main events. We were joking, issue 3 of 400. I completely agree with that. And I actually bought one. And I freaking love this book more than the main event. That's terrible. So Hyperion in the Imperial Guard is probably one of my favorites because I love the Imperial Guard. I have loved all their books that they've been in throughout the years. I love them in the X-Men 90s cartoon. It's just a diverse cast of characters. And this was just a real fun tale showing the Imperial Guard in their younger years with Hyperion on the team. And it does feed into the book technically, but it's pretty blah. This is a really fun standalone. I would read more of this. Personally, I really would. And I caught one thing. You guys know in the old Marvel books and some of the new ones, when they're like, see blah 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 issue number this for this reference, there was a little snark in here from the writer where it's a panel about Hyperion shaking hands with Corsair from the Starjammers, and it says, see Hyperion and the Imperial Guard numbers 96 through 99, which clearly don't exist because we're on issue 1. And so I love that blatant parody of that old principle they used to do with readers to those old issues. So this kind of stole the show for me, Caleb. I don't know. the main event's cool, but this was a lot of fun as a fan of Imperial Guard.
So you're basically saying that you really love the Legion.
Yeah. But it was fun, and issue 3 was fun too, getting to know Blur a little bit. So the Flash of the team, basically, that was a lot of fun too. So I'll be curious to see how the event turns out. But Bill, I'm so sorry, man. Marvel stole
Well, you know, in the mid '80s when they had the first Squadron Supreme miniseries, that was the best Justice League comics that were published that year, without a doubt. So Caleb, you are reading Heroes Reborn.
Yeah, so I did pick it up hesitantly.
So I'm remembering a conversation we had about how you were not touching this because you were so sick of retreads.
Yes.
What happened? Was the book actually not what you expected? Were
It
you
was not.
relying
So
a little bit too much on the title itself? Like I told
yes,
you not to?
100%.
Okay.
Slap the hand, slap it, slap. There you go. Yeah. No, it 100% was. So I was not going to touch this book with a 10-foot pole because, I mean, so number one, Heroes Reborn, the name alone throws you back to some Rob Liefeld nonsense that I couldn't stand at the time. Like I didn't like it. So I was really not sure what to expect from this. Also because I'm reading Jason Aaron's Avengers right now. I'm an Avengers mark. I love the Avengers. That's my team. The Avengers is the book that made me fall in love with comics. I love Jason Aaron. I love all of his work on Thor. I love, even like his creator own stuff is phenomenal. I cannot wait until they rip his ass off of the Avengers book.
Yes.
I cannot
am so
wait.
bored.
Yeah, I can't wait for him to be done with the Avengers. Which is, like I said, because I was so excited for it, but I'm not digging it.
But the thing is, like I have to see it to the end. I'm at that position with the. That's why it's one of the few Marvel books I still get. I have to see this to the end. I'm hoping there's a payoff.
Well, so
I really am.
And I think there will be. There's been some good ideas like farmed in that book. But the Avengers for me is a book I'm always going to get. So that's my quote unquote completest book. I get the Avengers no matter what it's like. That's my cup and that's my bread and butter. It's kind of like we've got some friends, or the guy I do a podcast with, Craig. He's always going to get Amazing Spider-Man. He's not going to read it, but he's always going to get it. Same thing with our friend Arnie. He's going to get Amazing Spider-Man. That's just, and I'm that way with the Avengers. That being said, I'm name dropping here, comic book fanboying, but our friend David A. Price from over the EOC podcast was talking this book up and reached out and said, dude, I think you should give this a chance. Here's some reasons why. It's not derivative. It's not based off of that. It's nothing to do with those things. Stems completely from Avengers. And I think you should get it. So I picked it up. That's the reason being. And I like it. It's not great. I'll give it this. I like this book better than I like the Avengers. Now, John, you said a few things that you said the art was kind of up and down. Each issue of this comes with a different artist. Mm-hmm. So the first book is Ed McGuinness. The second book is Dale Keown. Federico Vincenti does the third issue. I'm not sure who's doing the fourth. So literally each issue changes. I like Ed McGuinness. I'm an OG Hulk fan. I like Ed McGuinness's Hulk, but I'm not. I wasn't crazy with what Ed McGuinness gave us in those early pages of the Avengers. It's okay here. That even in the Avengers, he was being inked by Mark Morales, who's my favorite inker of like the last 30 years. Like I love. I've got three pieces of Mark Morales art hanging in my office right now, just Mark Morales. But I also don't think this is necessarily like you said, you don't like kind of like Elseworlds Tales, things that don't matter. The Blade that's in this book is the Blade from the Avengers book. Yeah. So it's some type of like he's been sucked into some portal. And all of this stems from the person who is now president in this story, who is somebody that people like from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. will know. I'm not going to spoil who it is, but who's even in the Avengers book, he's been kind of masterminding this governmental takeover and push out of the Avengers, especially now that the Avengers are being led by literally the leader of a foreign nation. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's completely a standalone, like offset, not tethered to the existing Marvel universe, because it is, and they're eventually going to get back to that. But I don't hate the book, and I was really surprised. So because nothing about this book told me I was going to like it, and I'm enjoying it. It's fun, like you said. There's some really balls to the wall moments. So,
but yeah, issue three was pretty solid for me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah.
Also, I love the Squadron Supreme though. So like, like I cherish any like the J. Michael Straczynski stuff that I've got in a box somewhere in my hut. Like I love that stuff. I've got all of it, and I think I'm the one person who's like, no, I've got that Squadron Supreme. So it's fun, and Aaron does really seem to have a grasp on those characters that I enjoy.
Okay. I will say, John, if it were not for it being cost prohibitive, because since I get so much goddamn DC, I would be buying this event. There's just too many books in too short a period of time to make the dollars work with the budget that I've set for myself for new books. Maybe down the road I will be reading it in some form, whether it's Marvel Unlimited or something. But this is something that does sound like it does touch on, because unlike you, I love alternative versions of these characters. I don't want to live there, but I don't mind visiting. And I especially love when they're done well, and when there's something that, wow, I never would have thought of that. I always love those moments. It sounds like there's a bunch of reveals through Heroes Reborn that are like, oh, that's just cheating what I've seen. It sounds like there's some inventive thinking that's going on with the parallels that they provide. So at some point I probably will read it. It's just not in the cards right now, just because it's so many books in too short a period of time.
Yeah. But let it be known that Nighthawk is the greatest detective on Earth.
He should be. Knowing who he's, who he really is, he should be. All right. Let's move over to Caleb.
Bill,
Caleb, yeah, go ahead.
No, well, I was going to go anyway. So, in my my life goal of remaining always in your good graces, I had to buy that first issue off of Comixology because my LCS was sold out of them or didn't order enough. But I've got issue 2 and 3. I've got solid copy. So if by chance you want to spend the money on the first issue and you want your lovable Wonder Cub to send you the codes, I'll happily do that.
Thank you.
So
I
you
would
can have those
greatly
too.
appreciate that. So I think that would make John especially happy. So
I will spread the love.
Thank you so much for that. I feel bad because the only codes I've ever given you were Major X. I've got to do better for you at some point, okay? You've been so nice to me, and I've given you Major X.
Well, look, but here's the thing, though. You use the codes. I typically don't. I typically don't use my. I know. It's a damn shame. I don't use my codes very often. Just because I get a lot of books. It's too much to log on and then go down. It's just a lot. So I read them, keep them, set them aside.
Okay.
Okay.
So. We are so not alike. Okay.
No, I know. I take after mom, her side of the family.
Well, the thing is, though, Caleb, I will say, though, if you do come into a situation where you do travel substantially for work in the future, you will change your tone about that. Absolutely.
Well, no, and you're absolutely right, because when I worked for my previous job, which was a military contractor where I traveled all over the U.S. and did National Guard training, facilitated the training and facilitated cultural sensitivity training, I should say. I was gone 8 months out of the year, and I used codes like a monster. Now that I'm home, I just don't do that anymore.
Yep. Okay.
But
cool.
Bill, I think we can both agree we've talked about entirely too much Marvel for the show.
No.
So we should move on.
I get this rep as a Marvel hater. I literally have thousands and thousands of Marvel comics. But go ahead, tell us what you're talking about. Oh, and it looks like you got
I just wanted to use it as a segue to talk about a DC book.
Okay, and you got the variant cover on that. Ooh.
I do. Look at that; it's pretty. So,
I'm a basic.
I love the Super Sons. There has not been, as far as like new characters a book aimed at featuring younger characters. DC is killing it right now with their YA books and everything else. But the Super Sons are by and large the top of the line for me. What Tomasi has done is something incredibly cool. So loved the first two books. Did not love what was it, Adventures of the Super Sons as much.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
I will co-sign on that with you. That was a 6-issue miniseries that went 12 issues. I will co-sign with you on that.
It wasn't a stinker by any means. It just wasn't as good as the first two. But now we've got Challenge of the Super Sons, and I'm really, really digging it based on this first issue. And it's got the energy, it's got the feeling of what the first two books that they had, which has me incredibly excited. And this book is cool because not only is it a fun book, I also had to go back after I finished the book and was like, wait, what actually just happened? Because I missed it the first time. I'm reading, I'm like, oh, cool, there's a thing that just like, and then I went back and was like, oh, like major DC things just happened in this book, right? With these big name characters. So you've got the boys, right? And they're kicking it like they always do. They're playing video games. They're supposed to be doing their homework, whatever. Completely just adolescent friends, buddies, doing what they want to do. And they're just bored. They want to go on patrol. So they do. But John wants to patrol hometown, right? He wants to go to Metropolis. Well, let's be honest. There's not a lot of crime that happens in Metropolis. So Damien's, of course, like, oh, we should have gone to Gotham.
Yeah. Can we also tell? Did you also catch why he wanted to stay in Metropolis?
Not off the top of my head. What was the?
Because his mother was making chili. Okay.
Yeah, so he wants to. He's thinking with his stomach. He wants to stay close to home. Of course, Damien wants to knock heads together. He's mad because they didn't go to Gotham. So they buddy up. Damien uses John as a surfboard basically to fly through Metropolis, and they're being do-gooders. They stop and help carry groceries in for folks. I mean, they're getting cats out of trees. But things aren't exciting. And so they land and they're kind of hashing this out, having this little aggravation moment. And a person, just this old woman in robes kind of comes out of nowhere and starts talking to him and zaps him through a portal. And as I was reading this, I was like, okay, that doesn't, like, that's just a thing that happens. And then it dawns on me who this is. It's freaking Pandora. Pandora has shown back up, and these books are at least tied. They're at least tied to the mainline Marvel or to the mainline DC universe. We haven't seen Pandora, at least that I know of, since pre-Rebirth.
She supposedly Rebirth. She supposedly died in Rebirth. Number one.
Yeah. So
that's right.
I haven't
because Flash, like Flash came in, Wally West came in, and she just sort of like and disappeared into the timeline or whatever, just like that.
So she's supposedly gone, and this book takes place. I should say this book takes place just after Adventures, and so this is before Bendis has sent John off, where he comes back older, I think 3 years older, where he's now taken the mantle of Superman. But she apparently knows everything's going to happen because at one point Pandora actually looks at John and calls him Superman. It's this really cool scene where they don't recognize who she is beforehand. She zaps them into a portal. She kind of hangs out there for a second, and then all of a sudden they come back. The boys zap back in a matter of seconds for her, but it was apparently like a lifetime, an eternity for the boys. We don't know where they went. We don't know what all they got into, but they come back with essentially a mission and a series of scrolls, and they have got to stop these incredibly terrible events from happening to the best of their ability. And so the first thing that they've got to do, they open up this scroll, and by now they know who Pandora is. Again, something happened in the portal, but it's kind of it's a scroll that marks somebody who's going to die. So they open up the scroll, and it's got the Flash's symbol on it. So they have to bust out. They've got to get to, I think, Central City to save the Flash. Superboy can fly, but he can't carry Damien at the speed of sound or light or whatever to get to wherever they need to go. So what are they going to do? He's like, well, I mean, if we were in Gotham, Damien says my dad would hook us up. Like, he's got really cool gadgets, but your dad is just a dude in some tights and underwear, and you guys just fly everywhere. And John's like, oh no, au contraire, sir. My dad also has really cool toys. So they go and they find a super plane that apparently Clark worked up with, the people at Star Labs that is going to get them there. So Damien jumps in, and Damien's having to suffer the indignity of flying the super plane while John is outside flying and being awesome. They get to Super City. I won't tell you how they save the day. They manage to save Flash. Another member of the Justice League is now in peril next. That's the next name on the scroll. Again, go check the book out to find out who it is. I love the energy. It's delightful. I should say that I haven't spoken much about the art. It's Max Rayner on art, Luis Guerrero on colors. You've got Rob Lee doing letters. Everything about the book is exactly what Super Sons is supposed to be. It's adventurous. It's lighthearted. It's fun. It takes everything about their literally their fathers, the characters that gave birth to these characters, boils it down to their essence. Pure joy, pure joy. And the thing is, it does all that while still having stakes. Like I said, I got all through the book. I'm like, wait a minute, was that Pandora? So just mind-boggling what Tomasi is able to do. Tomasi remains, to me, the writer at DC, arguably the writer at both of the big two, who is one of the most solid writers. He's never the marquee writer. Like, he's never the Jim Lee. He's never the Tom King when Tom took over Batman. They're not flashing his name everywhere. Solidly the ace in the hole. He's somebody who puts in amazing work, quality stuff. I've never read anything by him that I disliked. I've definitely liked some stuff better than others, but he's just the dude. He is the workhorse, and it's someday I really hope he does get his moment just in the spotlight where he gets to like top billing on the book. His Action Comics is stunning. When he worked on that book, everything he does is just great. So I got a lot of love for it, and the book made me happy. So
Yep. Yeah, and I do think that he and Patrick Gleason were such a good combination. I really hope we have that writer-artist combination. I think some of it is due to his having such a long history as an editor. And Jeff Johns is the first to champion his contributions to the color spectrum on Green Lantern and a lot of those moves that come with editorial input. And I think some of that is because he spent so long as an editor, and there were points where he was writing and editing, writing different things that he wasn't editing. But I'm totally with you. He really knows how to world build, and you get a tiny little world with, I was calling her Aurora, like John was, with Pandora.
Yeah, John called her Aurora at one point.
And also, I wouldn't be surprised if we do have another miniseries that is their quest where they do gather the scrolls.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if between that one page or another, we got another miniseries, because they're not bound to the current continuity, so they can't tell this story. Thing I really like about Super Sons is I love Damien in this. I love Damien in this because they don't play him as infallible, or he messes up as much as John does.
Yeah.
And when you do have the banter between the two of them, I think that John is one of the few people that Damien would let his hair down a bit more. And I think that injects a lot more fun to the character that I wish other writers would see is available to them.
Well, he gets to be a kid, and that's what I love about it. He just gets to be a kid for a little bit.
Yeah, if you do have DC Infinite, because this was a digital first series, if you do have that, you can read the first 7 of 14 digital issues. It's going to be 7. They combine them for the 2. I like the concept of a tour through the DC universe. I always like those types of stories, dating back to Wonder Woman's 12 Labors in the mid 70s, where you do have characters that do visit the other characters, and through that you get their interpretations of how they see those particular characters. And I mean, I was going to be reading this no matter what, but it's really fun to have this and that they found a way to lock themselves onto the original Super Sons concept
Mhm.
without having to address that John's in the Legion and he's 17 instead of 14 and all that stuff. Uh, I like that they have the conceits that they provide in here. So
Yeah.
yeah, I like it too.
Do we know what Patrick Gleason is doing? Is he doing any comics? Like I just don't know.
I don't think I've seen him on anything since the Robin, like the last Robin miniseries.
Okay.
But the back page of the book that I'm talking about today, one of my books, does have an ad for the new Peter Tomasi series coming from Mad Dog and Image, which is Snipe and Slug with an artist that I absolutely love for that conventional heroic look, Brad Walker. Brad
Yeah.
Walker does the absolute best Hal Jordan, and he's never been the artist for the Hal Jordan Green Lantern, which makes no sense because he's the
Yep.
perfect artist for it. Anyway, the book I'm talking about is Geiger. It's written by Jeff Johns with art by Gary Frank. I'm the furthest thing in the world from a Jeff Johns hater. I think he's one of the most important writers we've ever had in the medium. So some of the criticisms that have been lobbied against him just make no sense to me. Uh, like in this particular book, the lead character is of Middle Eastern descent, and there were some criticisms about how that was interpreted. Well, do people know that Jeff Johns is of Middle Eastern descent, and that Johns is an anglicized version of his actual last name? You know, do some reading before you throw a criticism on there. Okay, so anyway, what we have in Geiger is it's something which I usually friggin' hate, which is a post-apocalyptic sort of template. The United States has been in a limited nuclear war. And there's a lot of confusion about where this started. And there's a gentleman who's a doctor, Tariq Geiger, who in the earliest pages gets his family into a bunker because of the looting and all the confusion that's going on because we are at war. He encounters some anti-Muslim bias, which leads to some real sad events. But he is, and it's this isn't any surprise here. You see the nuclear bomb, and he survives, and he survives as what is known as the glowing man. And the terrain that you have in the post-nuclear aspect that in this world, you have the return of fiefdoms. There are kings again because of breakdowns in society. The city that is the closest to the action where there are fiefdoms, it will knock you out what city it is because it kind of makes perfect sense. So I'll just leave it at that. And there's also like these like kind of nods to things like Watchmen. We have there's references to almost like a Beetle Bailey character named Junkyard Joe, and you have a Junkyard Joe comic book who's a robot GI. It's on the back of here that actually pay real close attention to what happens here because I think this seeds some things that go on later. In terms of the artist, I am not the biggest fan of Gary Frank. I thought he was the absolute inappropriate artist for Superman and Shazam when he had those runs on there. I think he's good at disturbing. When he does have characters like Superman and Shazam, they like the teeth are always weird and stuff. I mean, he's just an artist that I don't necessarily gravitate towards. Say, oh, Gary Frank's doing art in this. Well, who's the writer? If it's not the writer that I'm digging, I might not jump into this. But I did like his work on things like Batman. What the hell they call Batman Earth One, and most recently Doomsday Clock, because there is that perverse edge to his style, and that certainly works in here. And he's very good at deserts. and where you get these, and just to show you, what he can do without words is the moment of the explosion. These are frames that we've seen time and time again in films and movies, but there's still something different about that. And again, it takes place over a 20-year period, the first issue. A lot of it's off panel. And in terms of the world building that they provided, I think with Jeff Johns, who's been so used to having the DC universe and having that world already built for him, I really admired what he did, because I don't think these are muscles that he necessarily usually flexes. It's from his own imprint with Image, Mad Ghost. In the pre AT&T Warner world, this probably would have been a Vertigo book, but we have a new imprint, and he's bringing some of his friends along. The Snipe and Slug that I mentioned is only the second of what I think are 17 planned books from the imprint over the next 4 years. So I enjoyed it, and I have to say I enjoyed it a bit more than I thought I would. So that's the book I'm talking about, Geiger, number 1. I think number 2 is out already, but I only have number 1.
I think it is.
Yeah, I think
that
I'm
on the
looking at it on
shelf.
What?
Yeah, I've seen Geiger on the shelf, but I haven't gravitated to it, and that I don't know if it was because it's Jeff Johns but out of his element that kind of worried me. Because I mean, I haven't read anything that Jeff Johns did that wasn't DC. And
you mean you've never read Morlocks from Marvel?
Anyway, I haven't read anything that Jeff Johns has done besides his DC stuff, and and that kind of does, like you said, like it kind of puts you in that mindset. It's like, well, when he's got all the toys to play with already, like the toys are already there, he's just giving them new scenarios and playing new games with them. It's I wouldn't say it's easier because hey, creators and writers, they have they have their work cut out for them because the characters have already existed. They have to stay within the realm of like what people expect of these characters, in addition to what something new and some grand new direction that they want to take them. But that's a good recommendation if he made something of his own that's actually really intriguing. Yeah.
And the last few pages where they fill in information, either through pinups or mapping, it gets me excited about what's ahead.
I agree with what you were talking about with Gary Frank, though. I'm a big Hulk fan, so Gary Frank, as far as Gary Frank's Hulk, is probably one of my top 10 Hulk artists. Love that stuff. He does better when he's not trying to do pretty. He does better when he really lets himself dive into the grotesque, the monstrous, where he gets into the minutia of nasty. That's where he really shines. And I'm just not going to say anything about Jeff Johns because you kind of said it all.
Okay.
Oh.
All right, Steve, you put in so I'm going to take that as a mic grab. So you tell us about something that you're reading that you're digging.
So 2 seconds, 3 seconds, I don't know. So my latest here is The House of Lost Horizons, #1, a Cyril Jewell mystery. It's another Hellboy book. He's just been, I don't want to say Mike Mignola has been doing it, but there have been a lot of really cool books that have been coming out under the Mignolaverse / Hellboy / Baltimore kind of world. And this is just the latest one. So Sarah Jewell, of course, is a character that's popped up in the past in Hellboy books before. And this one is just centered on her. So her and her lady traveling companion, Marie-Therese, wink, wink, basically are called to this mansion that's on an island that's isolated and off the coast of, I think, Washington, in order to help her good friend Lillian in dealing with the leftover items of her husband's estate. Because I guess her husband has amassed a massive occult collection. And of course, as soon as she gets there, dark and stormy night, lightning, rain, Lillian, the woman of the house, is running dramatically down to the water where Sarah and Maria Therese have just stepped off the boat, trying to get the boat to stay, but of course the boat moves on without her. And it turns out that there's been a murder. And of course there's the usual cast of really cool 1920s, 1930s characters that are there, any one of whom could have committed this horrible crime. But because it's a Hellboy book, you know that there's going to be some very real supernatural occult, methods to this madness, and that something is going to come out that's a little bit Lovecraftian rather than conventional. And so, the first murder has happened, and of course, by the end of the book, there's a second murder, and of course, it takes the person that you most suspect was responsible for the first murder. But I recommend it. It's a lot of fun. Chris Roberson on writing duties this time. Of course, I like Chris's stuff. And art by Leila Del Luca, who I'm not too familiar with, but I do like her style. It is, vaguely European, but also very, very generous with the bold lines and great facial expressions, which, I love. So House of Lost Horizons, #1, it is a 5-part miniseries.
Okay, very quick question for you. Just wondering if you knew, is this the first comic writing from Roberson in a while? Because the last thing I can think of that he did was that terrible Masks series at Dynamite.
Yeah, which I didn't read any of that.
Oh, it was terrible. It was terrible. Yeah.
I think he's done a couple other things since that one, but I can't remember what it was with the last one that I saw.
Yeah.
But this one's it's off to a fun start. It's a period piece, so if you like that.
Yeah.
It's very Clue.
Yeah, he's not hurting. Yeah, he's not hurting for money after iZombie, though. Apparently, that was a very good deal. Yeah. So, all right, let's go over back to John. John, tell us about something else you're reading that you're digging.
All right, so my offering tonight is super random, and I'm absolutely in love with it. You guys know I love my X-Men titles right now with the big Krakoa event going on in Marvel, and this one actually, I saw it and I was like, what in the world? And I'm like, I'll try it, of course. Pleasantly surprised. It actually kind of is in my top 3. Way of X, issue #2 just dropped this week. Issue #1, ton of fun, but there's enough in issue 2 that we're going to just stick to that. So first of all, I got to give it up to the fact that we have a bar scene. So Fabian Cortez, who used to be part of Magneto's Acolytes, is chilling at the bar with Dr. Nemesis, and they're talking. Dazzler, Alison Blair, is doing her thing in the background, singing, because that's what she does, making her lights and everything. And Dr. Nemesis is just not a fan. He refers to what she's doing as oral leprosy. And he goes, you don't like Fabian, you don't like Dazzler. And this line is brilliant, and I just have to share it because I just laughed so hard. He said, Dr. Nemesis goes, well, let me see. Do I enjoy being stabbed repeatedly in my parietal lobe by this spacious word farts of a weaponized human disco ball? No, I don't. And just total shade. And it's so funny to see a character that's so selfish and so not a nice person like Fabian Cortez just be the total, like, Alison Blair, Dazzler fanboy. That is the funniest little twist ever. So they're having fun with these characters, they are. But I just got such a charge out of that. Later, she greets him kind of like in conversation, and he's like, oh my god, she knows my name. So total fanboy moment. And I love stupid things like that because they're all over the X titles and they're just having fun with it. This book actually offers a lot, though. It's actually centered around Nightcrawler, which is a character I personally think doesn't get enough buzz. And so we have the prominent concept of faith, right, and morality. Issue 1 depicted a scene where young mutants were basically peer pressuring each other. Who's going to die on this mission? Because dying's cool, because as long as you die on this Earth, you can be resurrected back on Krakoa through the protocol. So now it's the buzz to get killed. And that deeply disturbs Nightcrawler. Like, he's not happy about it. So that's one of the big conflicts. Charles Xavier has detected the presence of an Omega level mutant that's been like haunting the mutants on the island, and so he talks to Nightcrawler on the side about it, and Nightcrawler's tasked with investigating this. I won't reveal who that is because it is revealed at the end of issue 2, and I'm very fascinated by that because that takes me back to my 90s roots for sure, back when I first started reading comics, and I'm very happy about it. So hopefully it's a good return. And then, of course, we have Charles Xavier's son, Legion, to top the cake, because, in every X-Men book, you got to cram as many characters as you can. Ultimately, I'm really excited about Nightcrawler's journey. I think that's my main takeaway from this book. All the side cameos, they're fun, they're cute, and all that. But Nightcrawler, it shows a lot of personal growth. There's talk about developing a religion for the society on Krakoa, which is cool. So we have a book about business now with X Corps coming out also. Mm-hmm. And now we have religion and Way of X. And so I think that that's a very interesting take. So yeah, I'm watching this character kind of grow. And so to me, this one really stood out to me this week in my pickups.
Nice.
Yeah, so I read this as well, and I really, really enjoyed it. I was hesitant going in because for me, with the character of Nightcrawler, his relationship to Catholicism and his faith is so inherent to that character that I thought, how is he going to separate that and start his own religion? Like that seems weird. But it doesn't necessarily do that. It doesn't take him away from his faith. It doesn't diminish his faith. I think he's still very much attached to his ideas and to his Judeo-Christian beliefs. He's trying to find a way to adapt that to a world that for that belief that salvation isn't in the cards for them with the means of resurrection. So how do I keep the tenets of my religion, and how do I keep the faith in a world where heaven is not my reward anymore? As somebody, so I've said on the show before, I'm agnostic. I'm not a practicing religious person now, but I grew up entrenched in the church down here in Arkansas, and so it's very much a part of who I am, even though I don't practice anymore. It's interesting to see that explored, and I thought it was done very, very well, really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right, you sound like you kind of have the mic grab anyway, Caleb. So tell us about the last book that you were reading that you're digging.
All right. Well, first of all, shout out to this dead Moscow Mule that I was drinking because it did its job. That was fun. Real quick, look, anything Black Hammer, I'm going to just devour, eat up, and love. So it's Steve and I talked about we're tag team on the Dark Horse right now.
It's over there.
The Black Hammer Vision series has been particularly fun because they're not written by Jeff Lemire. Jeff Lemire is now bringing in new writers to play with this thing that he created, the celebration of comics. At first, when I talked about Black Hammer, I would say it was a love letter to the golden age, but now it's just a love letter to the medium. It's a love letter to sequential storytelling, and I really enjoy that. It's cool to see him letting other writers play in his world where he's let other artists come into it. This particular issue 4, is written by somebody that I know I squee over. I know Steve squeeze over. It's Mariko Tamaki. I love her. So, someday Steve and I are going to find her at con and just give her a big sandwich hug. It's going to be beautiful. It's drawn by Diego Alortigai, Dave Stewart, the great Dave Stewart does the colors, Nate Picos on the letters. It's funny that the Dark Horse book that Steve spoke of referenced Clue, because this also plays Clue. The idea of Clue plays a big part in this. Nothing is more subversive in our modern times. Nothing is more weird, unsettling than maybe what we would consider to be reality television, right? Like what's real, what's not real, what does reality mean? That's what this book is essentially about. Mariko Tamaki breaks down what a reality TV show is using the Black Hammer crew. And the show that they're filming is very much based on Clue. The butler did it. But once they start filming and the relationships come out and the characters come out, these people, the relationships start to fray and break up, and they start to realize what's behind the scenes. So again, I don't want to spoil it. This is just a quick and dirty view. I love Colonel Weird because Colonel Weird no holds barred with that character. Anything is possible. Everything goes.
Mhm.
She plays with that character incredibly, incredibly well. So I just really enjoyed all of this whole. I guess you have to kind of call it an anthology, is what Visions is, because it's just a big collection. So I dig it. So check out issue
Very
4,
cool.
Black Hammer Visions.
And
Oh, yeah.
Steve, I have to thank you again for getting me issue number 1. That
Which I'll be
I did
sending
miss.
to you
Yep.
quite soon. I've got a care package for you.
Oh,
I would say it's
cool.
an early birthday present, but it's way too early. So
It's not that early. July 4th. It's not that far off.
it's over a month.
Okay. For my last book, I feel honor bound that I have to talk about this. Batman 0.2 and 3, because I do have DC Universe and you can read these. I was not a fan of the first issue. I'm still not a fan. I'm still not a fan of this freaking book. Anyway, what we have in here is we have basically a continuation of what happened in number 1 in number 2, except Batman realizes a bit more that's what's happening to him. He realizes that there's a reset every 22 minutes. Characters can die, he can die, and then 22 minutes later, it all starts again. So he's doing his best to try to remember stuff by writing things. Apart from that, it's more, characters meet and they fight. Okay. So that's basically issue 2. Issue 3, we get a little bit more background regarding what's happening. And it appears that there are people that are viewing what's happening in the Fortnite world. And they are listing Batman and special guest star Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe as assets. What happens in 2 is they find a way for Catwoman to escape the Fortnite world. It's kind of undone in issue 3. Sorry to hear, but Snake Eyes gets that opportunity as well in issue 3 because they probably don't want to pay licensing rights beyond one issue. It is also nice to see Batman fighting Snake Eyes, and there's a mutual respect. So if you're into splash pagey fighting, it's great. This thing still sucks. I do know a little bit more about stuff about Fortnite only because I Googled that character is named Ruckus. I never would have gotten it from this series. Things about the conceit about the Battle Royale aspect of Fortnite, it's not in here. I shouldn't have to go to Wiki to figure this shit out. This series sucks. But I'm in it for 3 more issues, but if this brings people into comic books, great. If they think Batman is cool here, maybe they'll go into something else. I just wish they had a much more inventive and less crass opening into this. So there you go.
Well, hey, if they like this, then they might pick up Joker Harley. I mean, it's really a quick, hop, skip, jump.
But just to seal the deal, La Bamba. Okay.
Yay!
All right. Judging by the time here, we have to start wrapping this episode up. And when we wrap an episode of the Comic Book Bears podcast up, we do so with a segment we call the Woofs of the Week segment. In the bear community, when you find a fella attractive, you woof at him. And we do something similar here. This is where we signify something which may be a comic book, but it may also be a film or a TV program or a charitable initiative or a novel. Anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener or viewer, may be interested in sampling. I'll start as I always do with Steve. Steve, what is your Woof of the Week?
So again, my Woof of the Week is a TV show. Shock! And what it is it's one that's available on HBO Max, or as I like to call it, Hobo Max. And it just dropped last week. It's coming out at about 2 episodes per week on Thursdays, and it is called Hacks, starring Gene Smart, and it is so funny. It's great. Gene Smart's she's a treasure. If you are a longtime homo gay, you've probably at some point watched all of Designing Women and know that Gene Smart is wonderful from there. But if you're a big comic book nerd who actually had access to premium cable, you know that she is incredible from Watchmen. Last year she did such a great job there. She's been incredible in Legion before that. that series. And here she gets to use her comedy chops and like her sarcastic, dry wit that she has in a lot of other roles. Like here, it is perfectly on display. And I think the actress who plays her foil, I believe, is Hannah Einbinder. The whole premise is that Jean Smart is a longtime, super successful comedian who has a residency in Vegas, but she's less relevant nowadays, and so her agent decides to send an explosive and very self-involved younger joke writer to go and be her assistant and write her jokes. And of course, they do not get along, but it's amazing. The supporting cast is great. I love it. I think you'll love it too. Thursdays on Hobo Max.
All right, let's go over to John. John, what is your wolf of the week?
All right, so I got a pair. And they go together. So you guys know I love my Disney Plus situation. I love Marvel. So WandaVision rocked my world. I thought it was really cool on a lot of fronts, but I kind of sat back and I said, I know a lot of guys that collect Avengers and probably got way more value out of everything that just happened in this amazing series than I probably did as an X-Men reader. And so I decided I'm going to do my due diligence and do some research, is what I call it when I go spend some money at the shop. I'm doing some research. So a few weeks ago, some trades came out, one of which was the complete saga of Vision and the Scarlet Witch collecting some old West Coast Avengers, some oversized Avengers annuals, and we're getting into the stuff where there is a lot of dialogue happening here. I crushed this bad boy in one day, and I sat in this recliner back here, and I loved every minute of it. This was such a fun journey. Vision calls Scarlet Witch Curly Top often through the series, so there's cute little pet names, and it's just so fun to see the telling of the story and how it was originally depicted, like in the old series. More importantly, I had no idea all the different characters that were involved in this little love situation. So, one fact, did you guys know that Toad from the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants was like an antagonist to this relationship because he also had a thing for Wanda? So when he showed up, I'm just like, what in the world? No, it's legit. It's a thing. It is jam-packed full of Marvel goodness that I personally was not exposed to previously, only because I didn't really intersect with the Avengers lanes. And so if you guys are looking to learn more about the characters, highly recommend this. A full gamut of characters all over the board. The Grim Reaper, Wonder Man. It's completely random. It's delightful. Which partners with my part 2. I got the Vision, the complete collection. So this is the tale of where Vision had his own family that he built. And this is dark and twisted, and I could easily see this being a wonderful like HBO show down the road or something, just with the themes of dealing with murder and lying and all sorts of great stuff. Powerful story, and actually some nods to what happened in the previous trade. So I'm glad that I took the time to get that history, because I enjoyed this a heck of a lot more. Shout out to Sparky the dog. The only thing that was missing from WandaVision that was in this book, the floating mailbox. Where was it? Because they had a little mailbox that had jets, and it just hovered, and it was super cute. But other than that, you guys, this makes me want to go out and read more, because his daughter, Vision's daughter, is probably like in the Young Avengers, I believe, from what I've seen. Those are titles I also am not reading.
Champion.
But so curious to just to learn more about it. Yeah, Caleb, I'll take up on any recommendations, because this was cool and the characters were cool, and I'm so thankful I took the time to dig it. And I crushed this in the same day too, so that was a lot of fun just to sit there and so.
Okay, and since you're in Brian's seat, it's also nice to see that we still have Tom King represented.
Of course, yes.
Really nice.
Tom King and the X-Men.
I did him proud, yes.
Yeah. All right, let's go over to Caleb. Caleb, what is your wolf of the week?
All right, so my wolf of the week goes out to Namor's bulge on the recent Defenders omnibus. I want to preemptively apologize. My computer has all of a sudden started getting glitchy in these last moments of the show. But no, my real wolf of the week goes out to a recent Kickstarter that's being done by some friends of mine. These are some guys who grew up around me in Arkansas. I've known them for years, Dalton Shannon and Wells Thompson. And they have a new Kickstarter for their new book. It's called Mechaton. It's a mech robot book that's on Kickstarter now. You can search for it, find it, throw some scratch at it. It's a story about fighting for your community against selfishness and authoritarianism, getting by with clever thinking and teamwork, trying to outpun your little sister and her strange witchy significant other. Also, trash robots punching giant monsters. The pitch says, "Think Gurren Lagann," which means nothing to me. I don't know what that is. Meets Murder Falcon, which means everything to me. I love Daniel Warren Johnson. So they have it sold. They have me sold on that. I like these guys. These guys are my age or younger. They love comics. They love the medium. They taught themselves how to write and draw for this. They are indie comic creators to the T. They have put themselves through everything. They had an anthology that they worked on that came out, actually got published through Caliber Comics last year. It's great to see them doing a new project. I'm very proud of them as their friend. And I'm very happy for them as a fan of their work. So I can't wait to see what they do with this. So go get it funded. Like it's only 17% backed right now. We got to get that thing up and over. They got stretch goals they got to meet. So go and throw some scratch at it.
Well, and if you back it for $40, you also get his family's coveted lentil soup recipe as one of the reward tiers. So lentils soup, come on.
Okay.
And I want to throw out just before we get too far, our buddy Mayday Trip is also doing some work on this book. So,
cool.
Mayday is a great friend. So I love them, and it's great to see them on this book.
Cool. All right. My Wolf of the Week goes out to an artist named Matthew Lineham. This past weekend, I went to the Trenton Punk Rock Flea Market, which is a twice annual event that they have in Trenton. It was the first time that they've done it in the parking lot of the Care Arena, and especially in the COVID atmosphere that we're in, it was nice to be out and feel safe. It was really cool, I gotta say. And Matthew Lineham, if you've ever been on my feed, my straight concert husband, Tom Moynihan, every year for his Cool Friends, he gets these ornaments that are based on new wave personalities, but they're done as ornaments. So there's an elf that's Elvis Costello. I got Partridge in a Pear Tree based on Andy Partridge from XTC. He also does pennants, and he had a booth at this. So I fucking love pennants. So I got the Fascination Street pennant, which is a tribute to that Cure song, and I got the Enjoy the Silence pennant, which is a tribute to that Depeche Mode song. And deviating a little bit, I got the tour from 1975 of Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem. If you go to his website, which is mlinehamart.com, you'll see a bunch of things. Caleb, I know that you are also a big Cure fan. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see it from here, but there's a beautiful Love Cats print done in the style of late 60s, Haight Ashbury sort of concert posters, and a bunch of other things there too. You can get T-shirts, you can get prints, bunch of things that are available there. And when I talked to him, he did say he is talking to comic book companies. So, maybe there will be a cover or something down the road from him. So that's mlinehamart.com. And there's a bunch of things you can get from that website, and especially pennants, because I fucking love pennants. So.
You've just given me ideas for what to get Jason for birthdays and/or Christmas, and/or to decorate his new studio once it's complete. So
nice. I'm sure there's going to be things that are there. There's one that's it's a pricey print, but he calls it Saturday Morning New Wave, and it's fun to just forget it. Anyway, it's fun to count and see how many of those personalities who they are. And it seems like a really nice guy too on top of it. So That's my wolf of the week. All right, we're going to wrap this one up. Again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and the Instagram as Comic Book Bears. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears podcast. If you want to listen to us, please do so by downloading us through iTunes, listening to us through Stitcher Radio, or catching us from some of the other podcasting platforms. And if you want to write to us, please do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. John, if you would, can you just provide where people can contact you and in regards to Comic Book Look?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you guys want to come hang out on Twitter, say howdy to me at @JohnOnDemand, or join the conversation with us at our Facebook group, A Comic Book Look. Always happy to welcome new members and get to talk more nerd with you and have some fun in the process. On YouTube, A Comic Book Look as well. So come hang out. We stream every Wednesday at usually 8:30 p.m. Central. Usually, so I had this week off. So thank you guys again for giving me some work this week. A guy's got to eat, right?
Yeah. And Caleb, since we're cross promoting, why don't you give some of the information regarding SFG?
Yeah, sure. So I also do a comic book based podcast called Southern. No, you're good.
Okay.
I hope I'm not glitching. I do a podcast called Southern Fried Geekery with some friends of ours, now collectively ours. We drop new episodes every Sunday. If you want to come join in those conversations, we also have a Facebook group. Just search Southern Fried Geekery in the search bar on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We're at SFG Podcast on both of those. And basically, it's just all part of this one big network of friends that it includes the CBB guys. So, and John, it's been a pleasure to meet you. I know you and I haven't got a chance to really get to know each other before this, but it's been wonderful. And hey, this is like the birth of a new friendship. So that's awesome. So good to meet you. And as always, great to be a part of this show.
All right, great. Until next time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
You're going to hear a wolf and an explosion. We'll be back real soon. Take care, everyone.
Bye. Bye.